They promised him a pet. What arrived was a terrified alien vampire woman. Elliot Winters had never ordered a pet before. The small, cramped apartment in orbit above New Terra's industrial sector was hardly a place for one. But the galaxy was changing, and Elliot liked to think he was ahead of it. When the flyer arrived through his compad, promising the most unique and exotic pet you could ever imagine, he couldn't resist. The ad had pictures of tiny glowing creatures, some with wings, some with soft fur that shimmered like starlight. Perfect for my research, he had told himself, and so he had clicked purchase, paying a sum that would have fed him for 3 months. The delivery came on a Tuesday when Elliot was already late for work. A crate, much larger than he expected, floated into his apartment on an automated drone. It rattled and shook as it landed with a thud, making Elliot jump. Strange sounds came from inside, scratches, soft whines, and something that almost sounded like a whisper. "What on earth or space?" he muttered, approaching cautiously. The crate had no labels, just a sticker in bold letters, "Handle with care. Fragile." Elliot's hand trembled as he activated the crate's lock. A soft hiss escaped, and the lid opened with a hydraulic groan. At first, he thought the dim lighting inside was playing tricks on him. There was a shadow moving. Then he saw her. She was humanoid, pale as the surface of a frozen moon, with wide, terrified eyes that reflected the soft glow of the crate's interior. Her hair was dark and flowed like liquid, framing a face both delicate and sharp. Long canines peeked from her lips, catching the light. She pressed herself against the back wall, trembling. Elliot froze. "This is not what I ordered," he whispered. The alien woman's eyes widened even further. She made a soft, almost musical hiss. Then she spoke in a voice that sounded like wind through crystal. "Please don't hurt me." Elliot took a cautious step back. I won't. You're my pet." He realized how ridiculous it sounded. "I mean, not exactly what I thought I'd get. I expected something small, maybe cute, not humanoid." Her gaze shifted nervously. "I am not cute." "I am Lysera," Elliot blinked. He wasn't expecting a name or speech or anything like this. Somehow the flyer had not mentioned that the pet might be an alien humanoid with intelligence. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Elliot said, "I'm Elliot Winters." "Don't worry, I'm not here to hurt you." Lysera's eyes scanned the room. "You are human." "Yes," Elliot said, "I am, and you're not dangerous, right?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I was captured. They said I would be sold as a pet. I didn't know." "I didn't want." Her voice cracked and she pressed her hands to her mouth. Elliot's heart sank. This was no ordinary pet scam. Someone had done something truly cruel, and now he had to figure out what to do. "Okay," he said, keeping his voice calm. "First, we need to get you out of the crate. You need food, water, and a safe place to calm down." Lysera hesitated, then nodded. Slowly, Elliot helped her out. She was light, almost fragile, but she moved with surprising speed and grace. He led her to the small living area of his apartment, trying to think through the situation. "You must be hungry," Elliot said. "Do you eat what humans eat?" Lysera shook her head. "No, my species, we feed differently. But you can help me survive for now. Thank you." Elliot nodded. He opened his kitchen storage, which mostly had nutrient packs and synthesized meals. "Maybe this will work," he said, handing her a small glowing cube. She sniffed it, hesitated, then tasted it. Relief washed over her face. You trust me?" Elliot asked, surprised. I must, or I die," she said softly. As she ate, Elliot realized how extraordinary this situation was. He wasn't just hosting a pet. He had a living, intelligent alien in his home, someone who could talk, think, and feel fear. The implications for science were incredible, but it also meant danger. Elliot had heard rumors about traders like the one who sold Lysera. They often reported rare species to authorities for profit. If anyone found out she was here, they could take her, or worse. Elliot moved carefully. We need to stay calm. I can't let anyone find out about you. Do you understand? Lysera nodded. Yes, I trust you. The days that followed were a mix of discovery and adjustment. Elliot learned that Lysera could survive on synthesized nutrients, but she preferred consuming small amounts of specialized energy from organic compounds, which Elliot improvised in the lab. She also had unique senses. She could detect emotions, almost like reading a person's mind, which made casual conversation awkward. She was frightened, yes, but also curious. She explored the apartment slowly, touching walls, staring at the hollow display, and asking countless questions about humans. Elliot answered them patiently, sometimes laughing at her astonishment. You can build cities out of metal and stone, she asked one day, pointing at the view of New Terra's skyline. Yes, Elliot said. We're pretty clever. Lysera tilted her head. Humans, you are small but cunning. You survive everywhere. Perhaps you are worthy of trust. Elliot felt a warm thrill. She was slowly opening up. This wasn't just a scientific experiment anymore. There was a connection forming, a fragile bond built on trust and mutual need. But the universe was rarely kind to such fragile beginnings. On the fourth day, a message pinged on Elliot's compad. It was from the Interstellar Delivery Service. Urgent, claim pending on your exotic pet. Security clearance required. Respond immediately. Elliot's stomach dropped. Whoever had captured Lysera had reported her missing, and now authorities were looking for her. He looked at Lysera, who had been quietly observing him. They're coming, he said softly. We have to be careful. Lysera's eyes narrowed. We escape. Maybe, Elliot said. We have to think fast. Over the next few hours, they planned. Elliot realized that Lysera's unique abilities could help. In dim light, she could move almost unseen. Her senses were sharper than any human's. Together, they could outsmart security long enough to find a safe solution. But for now, they had to hide, stay calm, and strengthen their bond. Elliot had never imagined that ordering a pet would lead to this. Living with a terrified alien, figuring out how to care for her, and planning to protect her from authorities and ruthless traitors alike. Yet as he watched Lysera cautiously explore his living room, he realized something remarkable. Humanity had a chance here, not through weapons or power, but through patience, intelligence, and empathy. And for Lysera, who had only known fear and capture, it was the first time in years she had felt safe, if only a little. Elliot smiled, knowing the next days would be dangerous, chaotic, and unlike anything he had ever experienced. But he also knew that somehow they would face it together. After all, she wasn't just a pet. She was Lysera, and perhaps in some strange way she was exactly what he had needed. The crate had promised a pet. The universe had delivered something far more extraordinary. Elliot had never felt so nervous in his life. The message from the Interstellar Delivery Service still glowed on his compad. Claim pending on your exotic pet. Security clearance required. He glanced at Lysera, who was sitting on the edge of the table, her pale hands folded in front of her. She was still fragile, still trembling from the memory of capture, but her eyes had a spark now, a spark of trust, curiosity, and even determination. We can't stay here, Elliot said quietly. They'll come looking for you soon. We have to move before they find out you're here. Lysera nodded, her long dark hair falling over her shoulders. Escape, human way, Elliot smiled faintly. Exactly, and we're going to do it smart, not fast. That's how humans survive. They spent the next few hours preparing. Elliot knew the space station's security systems reasonably well. He created a small diversion, an automatic holoprojector that displayed a decoy of Lysera in his apartment, pacing back and forth. Meanwhile, they would leave through the maintenance tunnels beneath the building, a narrow labyrinth few humans used. Lysera watched him work, tilting her head. You think of everything. Clever. Elliot shrugged. We have to. If we fail, you're captured again. And I can't let that happen. She didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, I trust you. The words made Elliot's chest tighten. This fragile creature who had been terrified of humans just days ago now relied on him. He realized that their bond was not just about survival. It was built on patience, empathy, and mutual respect. When the station's lights dimmed for the nightly maintenance cycle, Elliot gave Lysera a simple instruction. Follow me exactly. Stay in the shadows. Move only when I say. Can you do that? Lysera nodded, and together they slipped out of the apartment. The hallway was quiet, empty except for the soft hum of ventilation systems. Lysera's senses were incredible. She could hear distant footsteps and detect the tiniest vibrations. She guided Elliot when the floor sensors might have tripped an alarm, silently signaling when it was safe to move. They reached the maintenance tunnel, a narrow corridor of metal pipes and cables. Elliot's heart pounded as he pressed the door release. It opened with a hiss. Inside, the tunnel was dim and smelled faintly of oil and recycled air. This way, Elliot whispered, leading her along the twisting path. For a while, they moved in silence. The only sounds were their breathing and the faint hum of machinery. Elliot glanced at Lysera, who moved with graceful caution, her eyes darting in every direction. Despite her fear, there was a growing confidence in her movements. She was learning, adapting, trusting. Suddenly, a soft beep echoed through the tunnel. Elliot froze. "Sensors," he whispered. "Someone is nearby." Lysera's ears twitched and her pupils narrowed. She pressed herself flat against the wall, almost invisible in the shadows. Elliot followed her lead, holding his breath as two security drones passed, scanning for anomalies. The drones hummed past without noticing them, and they waited until the threat passed before continuing. "That was close," Elliot said once the tunnel was empty again. Lysera tilted her head. "You always calm, even danger," Elliot laughed softly. "I try." Humans have a saying, "Stay calm, think fast." Hours passed as they navigated the tunnels. They found rooms with old machinery, air vents, and storage areas, all places where few humans ventured. Lysera's abilities made the journey easier. She could sense when metal structures were weak and when the floor might creak. Elliot relied on her instincts and she trusted his guidance. Together, they moved like a single unit. Eventually, they reached the outer rim of the station, near the docking bays. Elliot's plan was risky. They would use an old cargo shuttle, one long abandoned but still functional, to escape the station. He guided Lysera through the corridors, avoiding patrols, until the shuttle bay came into view. The shuttle was dusty, its metal scratched and dull, but its engines were intact. Elliot quickly checked the systems, preparing for launch. Lysera stood beside him, her eyes wide with wonder. "You take me to stars?" she asked. "Yes," Elliot said, smiling. "And we're going somewhere safe." The launch sequence was tense. Every moment felt like it would be the one that triggered an alarm. Elliot worked with calm precision, entering codes, flipping switches, and finally starting the engines. The shuttle shuddered to life. Lysera's eyes sparkled as the stars came into view outside the viewport. "Human, you are clever. We fly." Elliot laughed softly. "Yeah, clever humans can do that." As they left the station behind, Elliot thought about the journey so far. When he had ordered a pet, he had expected something simple, maybe entertaining. Instead, he had found an intelligent, frightened alien, capable of thoughts and emotions far beyond what he imagined. And he had discovered something else, too, a strength within himself that he didn't know existed. They found a quiet orbit around a small, uninhabited moon. Elliot guided the shuttle to land safely, and Lysera stepped out onto the soft gray surface. The low gravity made her movements fluid, almost like dancing. She looked up at the stars, her pale face illuminated by distant suns. "You safe?" she asked. "Yes," Elliot said, "for now, and we'll figure out the next step together." Lysera nodded. She turned to Elliot, a faint smile playing on her lips. "I trust humans, especially you." Elliot felt a warmth in his chest. The fear, the danger, the uncertainty, it had all led to this moment. he realized that their bond was no longer just about survival. It was about respect, understanding, and the beginnings of friendship. They spent the next day exploring the moon's surface. Lysera was curious about everything: the gray dust, the low gravity, the tiny craters that glimmered in the weak sunlight. Elliot showed her human tools, simple devices that allowed them to analyze the environment. She was quick to learn, her intelligence shining as she grasped concepts almost instantly. "You like learning," Elliot observed. Lysera tilted her head. "Knowledge, survival." "Humans, you survive. Perhaps I learn from you," Elliot nodded. "And maybe I learn from you too." They found a small cave to shelter in, a safe place where they could rest and plan. Lysera curled up, exhausted but calm, while Elliot checked the shuttle systems. He knew they couldn't stay here forever, but for now, they had a moment of peace. That night, as Elliot stared at the stars, he realized how extraordinary this experience had been. He had not just saved a life. He had discovered the resilience and adaptability of another species. He had seen fear transform into trust, panic into cooperation, and uncertainty into courage. Lysera stirred beside him. "Elliot, why care?" she asked softly. Elliot thought for a moment. "Because it's the right thing to do. And because I wouldn't want anyone to treat you the way you were treated. No one deserves that." She nodded, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Humans strange but good. Perhaps you are worthy." Elliot smiled. "And maybe you're worthy too, of trust, of friendship, of freedom." In the quiet of the moon's surface, two unlikely companions shared a moment of understanding. They were different in every way: species, appearance, habits, but they had found common ground in empathy, intelligence, and courage. The stars stretched endlessly above them, a reminder of the vast, unexplored universe. Elliot knew their journey was just beginning. Together, they would face dangers, mysteries, and discoveries beyond imagination. But for now, they had each other, and that was enough. Elliot laughed softly. "I ordered a pet. The universe gave me a vampire alien, and somehow it feels perfect." Lysera smiled faintly. "I never thought humans could be friends. Perhaps now I know." The night passed quietly, the stars blinking overhead. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but tonight they were safe. And in that safety, a bond had formed that neither fear nor distance could break. In a galaxy full of chaos, Elliot and Lysera had found something rare and precious: trust. And that trust would carry them through everything the universe had yet to throw at them. Elliot woke to the dim light of New Terra's distant sun, filtering through the cave entrance. Lysera was already awake, sitting at the edge of the cave, her pale fingers tracing patterns in the gray dust. Her eyes, wide and alert, reflected the soft glow of the stars fading behind the horizon. "Good morning," Elliot said quietly, not wanting to startle her. Lysera turned her head, her long dark hair cascading over one shoulder. "Morning, human." They had spent the night in relative silence, the quiet only broken by the soft hum of the shuttle's life support system parked outside. The bond between them had grown stronger. Trust had become the foundation for everything, and it was now clear that Lysera was no longer terrified of him. She had learned to rely on his calmness, patience, and intelligence, and in return, Elliot had learned to respect her abilities, instincts, and perspective. "We should move soon," Elliot said, pulling on his jacket. "The moon is quiet now, but once the station realizes we're gone, they'll be sending patrols." Lysera nodded. "We go where?" Elliot hesitated. He had thought about it all night. They couldn't return to the station, not while the traitor who had captured her still roamed free, and hiding here forever wasn't a solution either. "I have an idea," he said finally. "There's a research outpost on the other side of the system, small, mostly automated. If we can get there, we can lay low for a while, maybe even start planning a real future." Lysera's eyes narrowed. "Future with humans," Elliot smiled softly. "With me, at least. We've learned we work well together. That counts for something." She considered this silently, then nodded. I trust your judgment. They loaded the shuttle carefully. Lysera's presence made the work easier. She could sense small mechanical flaws Elliot might have missed and pointed them out with quiet precision. Together, they ran pre-flight checks, calibrated navigation systems, and prepared for a discreet departure. The shuttle lifted off in a soft hiss, leaving the gray moon behind. The stars stretched endlessly in every direction. Lysera pressed her hands against the viewport, watching the universe glide past. So many lights, she whispered. Humans, you call them stars. Yes, Elliot said, smiling at her fascination. And each one is a sun like ours. Planets orbit them. Some have life, most don't. Lysera tilted her head. You think we are alone? Elliot shook his head. No, life is everywhere, intelligent life. Rare, but it exists. You're proof of that. She smiled faintly. And humans, you are clever, perhaps. We are not so different. As they traveled, Elliot reflected on how far they had come. Just days ago, he had been ordering what he thought would be a simple exotic pet. Now, he was responsible for an intelligent alien safety, guiding her through the galaxy and building a partnership he hadn't expected. He felt a mixture of pride, responsibility, and excitement. The journey was not without challenges. Space travel was unpredictable, and the station's authorities were not the only threat. Rogue traders, mercenaries, and automated security drones patrolled the system. Elliot had to navigate carefully, using obscure routes and relying on Lysera's unique senses to avoid detection. She proved invaluable, her abilities allowing them to move undetected and anticipate obstacles before they became threats. During one tense moment, a patrol drone appeared suddenly near an asteroid belt they were using as cover. Elliot froze, unsure how to react. Lysera, however, stepped forward, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim shuttle light. She focused, sensing the drone's patterns. Wait, she whispered, now left. Elliot followed her guidance and they maneuvered the shuttle through a narrow gap between asteroids. The drone passed without noticing them. Elliot exhaled in relief. You saved us, he said, glancing at her. Lysera tilted her head. We save each other, yes. Yes, Elliot agreed. We do. After several days of careful travel, they reached the research outpost. It was small, tucked in a rocky asteroid and mostly automated. Elliot docked the shuttle and entered the base, scanning for operational systems. Lysera followed, moving silently and observing everything. This place safe, she said finally. Few humans, few danger. Elliot nodded. Exactly. We can rest, plan, and recover here. For now, no one will find us. Inside the outpost, Elliot set up a workspace and basic living area. Lysera explored cautiously, inspecting the automated systems, storage units, and observation decks. Despite her initial fear, she moved with curiosity and precision. Elliot watched her and marveled at her adaptability. You learn fast, he said. I must, she replied, or perish. Humans, you endure. I wish to endure too. Days turned into weeks as they settled into a routine. Elliot conducted research, repaired equipment, and prepared for longer-term plans. Lysera helped in ways he had never imagined. She analyzed systems, suggested improvements, and even began experimenting with human technology, her intelligence shining through. Their bond deepened, built not just on trust, but on shared experiences and mutual respect. They learned to communicate without words at times, anticipating each other's needs and thoughts. The loneliness they had both felt, Elliot's from being isolated in the city, Lysera's from captivity, faded. They had found companionship, understanding, and perhaps even friendship. One evening, as they observed the stars through the outpost's observation deck, Lysera spoke softly. Elliot, I never thought humans capable of kindness like this. Elliot smiled. Kindness can be rare, but when it exists, it's powerful. You've shown me courage too, Lysera. You've survived, adapted, and trusted when it was hard. That's remarkable. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting starlight. Perhaps Humans and we can learn from each other, survive together." "Yes," Elliot said, his voice firm. "Together." Weeks passed, and they began exploring ways to make the outpost more livable. They cultivated small nutrient gardens, tested energy shields, and repaired communication arrays to monitor the surrounding system. Lysera proved exceptionally skilled, often teaching Elliot things about alien biology and survival that he had never imagined. One day, while working on the shuttle, Elliot looked at Lysera and said, "You've changed everything for me. I thought I wanted a pet, but what I needed was someone like you, someone who could challenge me, teach me, and trust me." Lysera paused, her eyes softening. "And I never thought a human could be a friend. I trust you, and perhaps now I hope for more." Elliot felt a warmth spread through him. This was not just about survival anymore. It was about connection, understanding, and the beginnings of something extraordinary. Their peace was not permanent. On the edge of the system, signals from the station began to appear. Automated drones had noticed the absence of the shuttle, and a search party was forming. Elliot realized they could not stay hidden forever. "We'll have to move," he told Lysera. "We can't stay here, but we're ready. Together, we can outsmart them." Lysera nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "I ready, with you." They spent the next few hours preparing. Elliot mapped the safest route, Lysera checked the shuttle systems, and together they calculated the timing and maneuvering needed to escape detection. The bond between them gave them confidence. Each knew the other's strengths and weaknesses. Each trusted the other completely. When the time came to leave, they lifted off quietly, using asteroid fields and sensor shadows to avoid detection. Patrols passed close by, but Lysera's abilities and Elliot's careful planning kept them safe. For hours, they navigated the system, moving silently and precisely. Finally, they reached open space, far from the station and the trader who had captured her. Elliot set a course for an unexplored sector, a place where they could truly be free. Lysera looked at the stars, her expression one of wonder and relief. "You safe?" she whispered. "Yes," Elliot said, "and from now on we face the universe together." In the quiet of deep space, two unlikely companions drifted among the stars. They had survived fear, capture, and danger. They had learned to trust, to adapt, and to care for each other. And they had discovered something even more extraordinary, the strength of friendship and the resilience of humanity when paired with courage and intelligence. Elliot smiled at Lysera. "I ordered a pet, but the universe gave me a partner. Someone who teaches me, challenges me, and trusts me, and somehow I think this is exactly what I needed." Lysera's eyes softened and she reached out, brushing her hand against his. "I never thought humans worthy, but now I know we survive together." As the stars stretched endlessly before them, Elliot and Lysera prepared for the adventures that awaited. Their journey was just beginning, but they were no longer alone. Together, they would explore, learn, and thrive in a galaxy full of wonders, dangers, and possibilities. And in that vast, uncharted universe, they had found something rare and precious: trust, companionship, and the beginning of a true friendship that could survive anything. The quiet of deep space was both comforting and unsettling. Elliot piloted the shuttle carefully, scanning star charts and monitoring the engines, while Lysera sat nearby, her eyes tracing the patterns of distant nebulae. For the first time since her escape, she felt a sense of peace. The fear that had haunted her for so long seemed to recede, replaced by curiosity and a cautious hope. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice soft. Elliot glanced at her. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can stay for a while, maybe even explore. I've been studying star charts and I think there's a small system nearby. Almost no humans, no traders, nothing. It could be our home, at least for now." Lysera nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Home, humans, strange word, but comforting," Elliot smiled. "It is. And we'll make it ours." As the shuttle glided through the empty void, Elliot reflected on how far they had come. They had escaped a dangerous trader, avoided patrols, and survived on the edge of the galaxy. Each step had tested their trust and cooperation, but they had grown stronger together. Lysera's abilities had proven invaluable, and her courage had inspired him more than he cared to admit. They approached the uninhabited system after several hours of careful navigation. The first planet they saw was small, rocky, and barren, but its thin atmosphere and weak gravity offered potential. Elliot landed the shuttle gently, and the two stepped out into a landscape of gray dust and jagged rocks. Lysera bent down, touching the surface. "Strange, quiet, safe," Elliot nodded. "Exactly. For now, we can rest and explore without worrying about anyone finding us." The days that followed were filled with discovery. The planet was harsh but manageable. They found small caves for shelter and shallow streams of water trickling from the rocky cliffs. Elliot began setting up a basic living area, while Lysera explored, learning the rhythms of this new world. She was fascinated by the planet's geology, the weak gravity, and the alien landscape. "You learn fast," Elliot observed as she examined a strange crystal formation. "I must," she replied, "or perish. Life, human or alien, must adapt." Their routines became steady. Elliot taught Lysera about human technology, how to repair and maintain equipment, and the basics of navigation and survival. In turn, she taught him about alien biology, subtle energy sensing, and ways to move silently and observe the environment without being noticed. Together, they learned from each other, their bond growing stronger with every shared experience. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elliot and Lysera sat outside their shelter, watching the stars emerge. The sky was a tapestry of colors, distant suns, nebulae, and glimmers of planets in the void. Lysera's eyes were wide with wonder. "Humans, you look at stars and think possibilities," she asked. Elliot nodded. "Yes, every star could be a new world, a new chance, a new adventure." "That's why we explore," Lysera smiled faintly. "I never thought humans capable of such hope. Perhaps we are similar. We look for life, survival, meaning." Elliot reached out, brushing his hand against hers. "We are, and now we face it together." The next challenge came sooner than expected. While exploring a nearby canyon, Lysera sensed movement, her eyes narrowed, ears twitching. "Human danger," she whispered. "Something approaching." Elliot followed her gaze. A small scout ship emerged from behind an asteroid, scanning the planet. It was a trader, no doubt searching for Lysera. "They've found us," Elliot said, urgency rising in his voice. "We need to hide and fast." Lysera nodded. "Follow me. Shadows safe." Using her senses, Lysera led Elliot to a hidden cave system she had discovered earlier. Its entrance was narrow, almost invisible from the canyon floor. Inside, the tunnels twisted and turned, giving them cover from sensors and scanners. Elliot activated the shuttle's cloaking protocols and sent a silent distress signal just in case. "We need to move quickly," he said. "They won't leave without checking the planet." Lysera's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "I guide, you plan." Together, they navigated the tunnels. Lysera's heightened senses allowed them to avoid detection, while Elliot mapped escape routes and planned contingencies. Hours passed, and the scout ship eventually gave up, moving on to another part of the system. "Close," Elliot whispered, exhaling. Lysera tilted her head. "Danger teaches, humans clever. I learn from you," Elliot smiled. "And I from you. We survive together." The days following the encounter were tense but productive. They reinforced their shelter, set traps and warning systems, and explored more of the planet to understand its resources. Lysera's curiosity was endless, and Elliot encouraged it, knowing that knowledge was their greatest advantage. "You not afraid?" she asked one day, watching him test a small energy shield against meteor fragments. Elliot shook his head. "Fear is natural, but we use it to think, plan, and act. That's how humans survive." Lysera nodded, clearly impressed. "Humans small but clever." perhaps survival's strongest in mind. As the weeks passed, their bond deepened. Lysera no longer trembled at sudden movements or strange sounds. She laughed softly at Elliot's clumsy attempts at humor, shared her thoughts freely, and even began suggesting improvements to the shuttle and equipment. Elliot, in turn, grew more confident, learning to rely on her instincts and abilities. One night as they watched the twin moons rise over the rocky horizon, Lysera spoke quietly. "Elliot, I never thought trust humans, but now I know you worthy, and I am grateful." Elliot reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm grateful too, Lysera. You've changed everything for me. I thought I wanted a pet, but what I needed was someone like you. Someone who could teach me, challenge me, and trust me." She smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the moons above. "And I never thought I could hope again. With you I do." The bond between them was no longer just survival. It was friendship, respect, and something deeper that neither fully understood yet. They had faced danger, fear, and uncertainty, and come out stronger together. The galaxy was vast, full of unknowns, but they were no longer alone. A few days later, while exploring a rocky plateau, they discovered a strange formation, a natural cave system glowing faintly with crystal energy. The crystals pulsed softly, providing light and warmth. Elliot examined them with fascination. "This could be useful," he said. "Energy source, shelter, maybe even a research opportunity." Lysera moved among the crystals, her fingers brushing their surface. "Powerful and beautiful. Humans, you see potential everywhere." "Yes," Elliot said, "and we'll use it wisely." Together, they began setting up a new base, integrating the crystals into their shelter and testing their properties. Lysera adapted quickly, suggesting ways to harness the energy for food synthesis, communication systems, and defensive measures. Elliot marveled at her intelligence and creativity. That evening, as they rested among the softly glowing crystals, Elliot reflected on everything that had happened. From the moment he had ordered what he thought would be a simple pet, his life had changed completely. He had discovered courage, resilience, and the extraordinary abilities of another species. He had formed a bond that went beyond species, beyond fear, beyond expectation. Lysera looked at him, her eyes calm and bright. "Elliot, humans, you endure. You survive. You care." Elliot smiled. "And you too, Lysera. We survived together. We learned together. We faced the universe together." The stars outside twinkled endlessly, a reminder of the vast, unexplored galaxy awaiting them. Danger, discovery, and adventure lay ahead, but Elliot and Lysera were ready. They had learned to trust, to cooperate, and to face challenges with intelligence, courage, and empathy. "You think we safe now?" Lysera asked softly. "For now," Elliot said, "but safe or not, we have each other, and that makes all the difference." Lysera reached out, brushing her hand against his. "I never thought I could feel safe, but now I do, with you." Elliot's heart warmed. The galaxy was unpredictable, full of danger and wonder. But with Lysera by his side, he knew they could face anything. Together, they would explore, survive, and thrive, discovering the unknown and finding hope in the vast emptiness of space. And as the twin moons cast their gentle light on the crystal-filled cave, Elliot realized something extraordinary. The universe had given him not a pet, not just an ally, but a partner, a friend, and a companion capable of teaching him more about life, courage, and trust than he had ever imagined. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time both Elliot and Lysera felt ready. Together, they would write their own story among the stars, surviving, learning, and thriving in a galaxy that had once seemed vast, cold, and dangerous, but now held endless possibility. In the quiet glow of the crystal cave, with the stars shining above and the soft pulse of alien energy all around, two unlikely companions sat side by side. They had survived fear, capture, and danger. They had learned to trust, to adapt, and to care for one another. And in the infinite expanse of space, they had found something rare and precious, hope, friendship, and the beginning of a life shared, side by side in the vast universe.